The pop echoed through the reinforced glass. Vexther's left eye focused on the human below. She had just cracked her neck, an audible sound that should not have carried through military-grade observation windows, and now she was stretching like she had finished a commute, not a 3-week hyperspace journey. 217 species, he muttered to himself, 30 years, and they send me a human. Krillnex's eye stalks curled in that way he had learned to recognize as either horror or amusement. With Kashin's, the two were chemically indistinguishable. You wanted a challenge, she said. I wanted a species that could survive the first hour without medical intervention. The human below, Kate Brennan, according to the file he still had not opened, hoisted a duffel bag over one shoulder and looked around the landing bay like she was checking for a coffee stand. Earth gravity, she said to no one, is 9.8 meters per second squared. This station feels like 7.2. You'd think they'd compensate. She said it loud enough for the bay's audio pickups to catch. Vexther's talons clicked against the metal floor as he descended. He had perfected that rhythm over 3 decades, authoritative, vaguely menacing, the sound of someone who had broken 217 species and remembered every single one. Kate Brennan. She turned. Her eyes moved over his 7-foot serpentine frame, his triple-jointed neck, his mandibles. She did not flinch. Instructor Vexther, she said, heard good things. Then you were misinformed. He stepped closer. His translator box rendered his voice flat and formal. For the next 14 days, you will be subjected to conditions that simulate the most hostile environments in known space. Atmospheric toxins, extreme temperatures, crushing gravity, nutritional scarcity, aggressive fauna. He paused for the part that always landed. 37% of participants require medical intervention, additional rehabilitation, or body retrieval. Kate blinked at him. Cool, is there coffee here, or should I have brought my own? Vexther's mandibles clicked. You are concerned about coffee. I mean, yeah, it's 7 in the morning station time, and I haven't had any since the last jump gate. She smiled. It did not look like a threat display, which somehow made it worse. Unless you want me cranky during your whole dramatic speech thing. The audacity. There is a commissary on level 3, he managed. You have 1 hour. Training begins at 0900. Do not be late. Kate hitched her duffel higher. Level 3, got it. She started walking, then stopped. Oh, quick question. Do you guys have anything that can handle Earth's standard gravity in the gym? The ship's equipment was way too light. She walked away before he could answer. Vexther stared after her. Then he turned and walked to his office, where the human physiology file waited on his data pad. He had not opened it. He did not need to. Humans came from a little garden world called Terra. The most dangerous thing there was probably a stiff breeze. He would read it later. Maybe. The environmental acclimation chamber occupied the entire northern wing. Vexther called it the attitude adjuster. Most species lasted approximately 14 minutes before their survival instincts overrode their pride. He set the temperature to -40 degrees Celsius and watched through the observation window as Kate entered, wearing nothing but her standard-issue fatigues and boots. Beginning cold resistance protocol, he announced through the intercom. You will remain inside until your core temperature drops to dangerous levels or until you signal for extraction, whichever comes first. Kate looked around the chamber. Frost was already forming on the walls. Okay, so this is pretty cold. She hugged herself and hopped from foot to foot, like Minnesota cold. Minnesota. Vexther checked his translator. It was not malfunctioning. How long are we doing this? She called out. Until your body can't compensate anymore. Right, so like an hour, too. The average species lasts 11 minutes. How neat. 23 minutes later, she was still walking laps, breath misting, complaining about her fingers getting stiff. Vexther increased the temperature to -60. She swore loudly, but she kept moving. At 41 minutes, Krillnex slithered up beside him. Her eye stalks were focused on the human, who had stopped complaining and was now singing something under her breath. She is still going, Krillnex observed. I can see that, thank you. The Krellex champion lasted 9 minutes at this temperature before his secondary organs began shutting down. I am aware. Vexthor cranked the temperature to plus 70 degrees Celsius. Humid, oppressive, the kind of heat that sent most species into immediate heat stroke within minutes. Kate stopped mid-stride. Oh, come on, she unzipped her fatigue jacket. We're doing both extremes in one session. That seems inefficient. It is meant to test your adaptability to rapid environmental shifts. Well, it's testing my patience, I can tell you that much. She sat down cross-legged on the floor, which was now hot enough to cook food on, and fanned herself with one hand. Are we almost done? Because I'm getting hungry. Vexthor stared at his control panel. According to the biometric sensors attached to Kate's uniform, her core temperature had fluctuated by less than 2 degrees throughout the entire ordeal. Her heart rate was elevated, but only to levels consistent with mild exercise. This is impossible, he muttered. Nothing is impossible with humans, Krillnex said, her eye stalks curling. That is what makes them terrifying. The atmospheric hazard chamber was Vexthor's personal favorite. It had never failed to break even the most arrogant trainee. The cocktail of chlorine gas, sulfur dioxide, and trace hydrogen cyanide could drop a Kelvian battleox in under 30 seconds. He suited Kate with a standard breather mask, the kind that filtered out the worst of the toxins but still allowed enough through to trigger the body's panic response. You will remain in the chamber for as long as you can tolerate, he explained. The gases inside are lethal in high concentrations. The mask will keep you alive, but you will experience significant discomfort. Got it, Kate gave him a thumbs up. Poison air, don't die. Tap out when it sucks too much. He sealed her inside and began the gas flow. 30 seconds, vitals normal. 1 minute, normal. 2 minutes, she was examining the walls like she was considering redecorating. 3 minutes, she reached up and pulled off the mask. No, Vexthor slammed his claws against the intercom. Put the mask back on immediately. Kate waved vaguely at the observation window. This thing has a leak or something. It smells weird. That is the poison. The poison smells weird because it is poison. No, I mean the mask smells weird, like old rubber. She sniffed the chamber air experimentally. The air in here just smells like, I don't know, a pool and maybe eggs. Vexthor looked at his instruments, then at Kate, then at his instruments again. The atmospheric composition was reading as lethally toxic. The chamber was functioning perfectly. Kate Brennan was just standing there, breathing in enough poison to kill a small settlement, comparing it to recreational water facilities and breakfast foods. Put the mask on. Fine, Jays. She fitted it back over her face, but not before taking one more deep breath of air that should have dissolved her lungs. At the 5-minute mark, alarms started blaring. Not from Kate's biometrics, those were still frustratingly normal. From the chamber itself, a crack had formed in the ventilation seal. Trace amounts of the gas mixture were leaking into the observation corridor. Evacuate! Evacuate now! Krillnex's voice screeched over the facility-wide intercom as emergency doors slammed shut. Vexthor stumbled backward, his respiratory system already burning from the minimal exposure. Through the observation window, he could see Kate looking around in confusion as hazard lights strobed red. Is something wrong? Her voice crackled through the intercom. Did I break it? The gas leak alarms were still blaring when Vexthor's medical team dragged him to the decontamination bay. He was wheezing into an oxygen supply. His respiratory system felt like it had been scrubbed with industrial solvent. Kate Brennan stood in the decontamination shower on the other side of the transparent partition, looking mildly annoyed. Water, or whatever the facility used as a cleaning agent, streamed over her unwashed fatigues. I didn't even finish the test, she said. The medic scanning her vitals was enthesian. Good pattern recognition skills, bad at hiding confusion. Her lungs are completely clear, the medic said. He looked at his scanner, then at Kate, then at the scanner again. No inflammation, no toxin absorption, there's no reading at all. Vexter pulled up the human physiology file on his data pad. 1,700 pages. The first line of the summary made his blood run cold. Warning, review full documentation before engaging with Terran species. He closed the file. He would read it later, after the next test. Maybe the next one would break her. The gravitational stress chamber had been installed at great expense. A delegation from the High Gravity Coalition had complained that the Academy was too soft, too accommodating for what they called puddle worlders. The chamber could simulate up to 8 times standard galactic gravity. Vexter decided to run this session with multiple trainees. Maybe watching more sensible species struggle would give the human some perspective. He selected 2 Krelax, whose home world boasted nearly twice standard gravity, and 1 Thoran, a species literally made of living stone. Kate arrived in the same fatigues, still unwashed. The other trainees wore specialized compression suits designed to prevent organ rupture. "Do you not want a support harness?" Vexter asked. "No, I'm good," Kate stretched. "How high are we going?" "We will begin at 2 times standard gravity and increase incrementally." "Cool," she did the math in her head. "So like 20 meters per second squared, a bit more." Vexter stared at her. "You know the mathematical conversion. I took physics in high school. It wasn't that hard." She cracked her neck. The pop echoed through the chamber's prep area. "Can we get started? I want to hit the gym after this." He sealed them all in and engaged the field. At 2 times gravity, the Krelax grunted but held their stance. The Thoran seemed unbothered. His species evolved in cave systems with gravitational anomalies. Kate dropped into a squat, stood back up. "Yeah, okay, this is noticeable." At 3 times gravity, one of the Krelax went down on one knee. His compression suit whined as it tried to compensate. Kate was doing lunges. "Are you exercising?" Vexter demanded. "Well, I'm already here, might as well make use of it." She lunged again. "This is great for leg day." At 4 times gravity, the second Krelax tapped out. He crawled toward the exit as his internal organs began compressing dangerously. The Thoran was now visibly straining. His stone flesh creaked. Kate had moved on to push-ups. 1, 2, 3, 4. She counted. Her voice was strained but not panicked. "This is actually harder than I thought. Good workout." At 5 times gravity, the Thoran signaled defeat. His body was literally cracking under the pressure. Medical teams rushed in, moving carefully under the crushing weight. Kate was still going. 17, 18, 19, 20. She rolled onto her back. "Okay, yeah, I'm feeling this one." Vexter increased it to 6 times. The observation window creaked. Equipment not rated for this level of stress began groaning. Kate started doing abdominal exercises. "Your species should not be able to function under these conditions," Vexter said. He was no longer hiding the bewilderment in his voice. "Your bone density, your muscle structure, your cardiovascular system, none of it should allow for this. Gravity on Earth is about 9.8 meters per second squared." Kate grunted out between crunches. "So this is like, what, 6 times that? It's rough, but not impossible." "How high can this thing go?" 8 times is the maximum." "Let's do it." He should have said no. He should have ended the test right there. Instead, Vexter cranked the field to maximum. Kate stopped exercising. She lay flat on her back, breathing hard. Sweat soaked through her uniform. "Okay," she panted. "Okay, this is actually really hard. I think maybe 5 more minutes, and I'll be done." She lasted 12 minutes. The equipment lasted 8 before it started sparking and smoking, forcing an emergency shutdown as maintenance crews swarmed the chamber. Vexter sat at his observation station and finally began reading the human file. The first section was titled Deathworld Adaptations and Why You Should Be Concerned. He was concerned. The Academy Biodome was designed as a recreational space. Carefully cultivated plant life from low-risk worlds. Designated safe zones for dining. A place where trainees could decompress between sessions. There were also restricted areas, clearly marked with hazard warnings in 47 languages, sections where more aggressive or toxic flora were kept for research purposes. Vexter was in his office, 3 hours deep into the human file and experiencing what he was relatively certain was an existential crisis when the alarm started. Not the standard alert chimes, full evacuation sirens. He bolted from his chair, nearly tripping over his own tail, and brought up the security feeds on his wall display. The biodome cameras showed personnel fleeing in every direction. Automated warnings blared about a Class 7 biological hazard breach. Then he saw her. Kate Brennan was sitting cross-legged on the ground in Section 7 Delta, the area specifically cordoned off because it housed Zelfian thorns, a plant species whose mere proximity caused respiratory failure in most oxygen breathers. She had a container open in her lap. She was eating something, reading a book on her data pad. "No," Vexter whispered. He sprinted toward the biodome. By the time he arrived, a full emergency response team had assembled outside the section. All of them wore hazmat suits. All of them were arguing about extraction protocols. Krillnex was there too, all 7 eye stalks pressed against the transparent barrier. "She has been in there for 11 minutes, Krillnex said. "Zelfian thorns release spores every 7 minutes when they detect body heat. She should be dead. Why is she not dead?" One of the hazmat team members wailed. "Why is nothing ever simple with humans?" Vexter grabbed a spare comm unit and patched into the section's intercom. "Kate Brennan, can you hear me?" Kate looked up from her data pad, spotted the crowd of emergency personnel, waved. Then she tapped her ear and pointed to the comm panel. "Oh right, hold on," her voice crackled through. "What's up? Is something wrong? You are sitting in a Class 7 hazard zone. I'm sitting in the garden area. It's nice here, smells like rosemary and something else I can't quite place. That something else is a neurotoxin. You are breathing in spores that cause immediate paralysis and respiratory collapse." Kate sniffed the air experimentally. Maybe that's why I have a tiny headache. I thought it was just low blood sugar." "Evacuate immediately." "Can I finish my lunch first? I'm almost done." Vexter looked at Krillnex. Krillnex looked at Vexter. One of the hazmat team members sat down heavily on the ground and put his helmet in his hands. "What are you eating?" Vexter asked. A sense of morbid curiosity had overtaken his panic. Kate held up the container to the camera. "Just some stuff I brought from the commissary. Got some of that Krathian spice blend, some fermented velcroot, those little thorian salt crystals, and I found these amazing preserved Zethian blood fruits in the back of the cooler." She mixed a spoonful of something red and viscous into her rice. "Want some?" The hazmat team leader made a sound like a dying engine. "That is not food. That is a list of controlled substances. The Krathian spice is a banned incendiary agent. Velcroot is literally poisonous. Thorian salt crystals are used in industrial applications because they corrode organic tissue. And Zethian blood fruit, actual Zethian blood fruit, is classified as a chemical weapon by the Galactic Council." Kate looked at her lunch with renewed interest. "Really?" She took another bite, chewed, swallowed. "It just tastes like really intense hot sauce. I mean, it's pretty spicy, but nothing worse than those ghost peppers my brother grew in his garden. Now those things were brutal." "Ghost peppers," Vexter repeated flatly. "Yeah, they're like, I don't know, 1,000,000 Scoville units. Made my eyes water something fierce." She looked at her container. "These blood fruits are maybe half that. Honestly, kind of disappointing. I was hoping for more kick." Krillnex's eye stalks had all focused into a single point of horrified fascination. "She is comparing military-grade chemical weapons to her agricultural products and finding them lacking. I want off this assignment," one of the hazmat team members announced. "I want to transfer to the nice, safe, predictable Voidwalker containment facility where the worst thing that can happen is getting shunted into an alternate dimension. This is too much." Kate finished her lunch, packed up her container, stood up, brushed off her pants. She walked toward the exit, stepping carefully around the Zelfian thorns, which seemed to lean away from her as she passed. "Sorry for the confusion," she said as she emerged. She pulled off her jacket and shook out some pollen. "I didn't realize this area was restricted. The sign was in a language I haven't learned yet." The sign was in Galactic Standard, the first language taught to all trainees. Vexthor did not have the energy to point this out. He returned to his office and continued reading the human file. He was on page 643. The section was titled Common Human Foods and Why They Horrify Everyone Else. It was 63 pages long. The Predator Gauntlet was exactly what it sounded like. Trainees were released into a controlled environment with 3 bioengineered hunting beasts called Ravagers, creatures specifically designed to test combat reflexes, threat assessment, and survival instincts. They had retractable claws, reinforced exoskeletons, enough predatory drive to make a Kelvian warhound look like a lap pet. Standard protocol gave trainees a plasma stunner and 20 minutes to evade or incapacitate the creatures. Most lasted 7 minutes before requesting extraction. A few managed to stun one Ravager. Nobody had ever dealt with all 3. Kate showed up in her unwashed fatigues. Vexthor was now convinced they were developing their own ecosystem. "So I just have to survive, right?" She checked the charge on her stunner. "Survive, evade, or neutralize the threats. The Ravagers are trained to hunt, but not to kill. They will pursue you relentlessly, but the scenario ends when you signal defeat or when time expires." He gestured to the arena entrance. "Any questions? Are they dog-sized or bear-sized? I do not know what those reference points mean." "Okay, follow-up question," Kate smiled. "Can I pet them if I stun them first?" "Absolutely not. They are dangerous predators, not lap pets." Kate shrugged and walked into the arena. Vexthor stood at the podium, his prepared speech abandoned. Somewhere around day 6, Kate had accidentally discovered that the emergency rations were edible to humans. Despite containing trace amounts of arsenic, she had asked if they had more. Now at graduation, Kate stood front and center, cleaned up in her formal uniform, looking almost disappointingly normal. The Ravagers sat in the front row. They had refused to return to their kennels. Kate had promised to visit them before she left. "Kate Brennan," Vexthor began, his voice was hollow, "has achieved a perfect score in every category." He paused. "She has set new records that will likely never be broken, mostly because we are updating all of our equipment ratings." Polite chittering and clicking rippled through the assembled audience. "I will be recommending humans receive their own separate training protocols." Kate stepped to the microphone. "Thanks for pushing me. This was way harder than basic training back on Earth." Vexthor's eye twitched. "Please do not tell your friends to apply." "Oh, I'm definitely telling them." She cracked her neck one last time. The pop echoed through the silent hole. Vexthor flinched. He had learned what that sound meant. Not weakness, preparation. "Stick around," the part that broke a 30-year veteran, that came way before the ceremony. The Predator Gauntlet doors hissed open. Kate walked into the arena like she was entering a waiting room. The Ravagers were released 60 seconds later. They moved with liquid grace, sensors locking onto her heat signature. All 3 began their approach from different angles, a coordinated pack hunting strategy refined over hundreds of simulations. Kate saw them coming. She sighed, put her hands on her hips. "Oh, come on, really?" She looked at the lead creature, all claws and exoskeleton and teeth. "You guys look like someone mixed a lizard with a scorpion and gave it anger issues." The lead Ravager lunged. Kate sidestepped, let it sail past her, and bopped it on the head with her stunner. Without firing it. "Bad, no, we do not jump at people." The creature skidded to a halt, shook its head, turned around, clearly confused about why its prey was scolding it instead of running. The second Ravager tried a different approach, circling around behind her. Kate spun and pointed the stunner at it. "I can see you. Yes, I can. Do not even think about it." The Ravager froze mid-stalk. On the observation deck, Vexthor leaned closer to the screen. This is not how predator-prey dynamics work. She is supposed to be terrified. Why is she not terrified? Maybe she does not understand the danger, Krillnex offered. On screen, Kate had sat down cross-legged on the ground. All three Ravagers were now circling her cautiously. Their hunting algorithms were clearly malfunctioning in the face of prey that refused to act like prey. "All right, listen up." Kate addressed the creatures like they were misbehaving students. "I have had a really weird week. Temperature extremes, poison air, high gravity, and everyone keeps panicking about my lunch." She paused. "I'm tired, I'm sore, and I haven't had decent coffee in 4 days." She pointed at the largest Ravager. "So here is what we are going to do. You three are going to calm down. I am going to sit here for the next." She checked a non-existent watch on her wrist. 18 minutes, and we are all going to have a nice quiet time. Okay. One of the Ravagers made a chittering sound. It sat down. Then the second one sat. Then the third one walked over and laid down with its head near Kate's leg. "Good boys or girls, or whatever you are, I don't actually know how your species works." She reached out slowly, scratched behind what might have been the creature's ear. It made a rumbling sound. The audio pickups rendered it as something between a purr and a growl. Vexthor stood up, walked to the door, opened it, walked back in, sat down again. The scene had not changed. Kate Brennan was sitting in a combat arena, petting a bioengineered killing machine while the other two waited their turn. "I am going to need so much therapy after this assignment," he announced. "Get in line," Krillnex replied. Her eye stalks were drooping. "I have been keeping a list of therapists since day 2. Vexthor had not slept in 36 hours. His office looked like a disaster zone. Data pads scattered across every surface. The human file displayed on multiple screens simultaneously. A half-eaten meal congealing in the corner that he did not remember ordering. "She passed the void exposure test," he said to no one. His voice was hollow again. 15 minutes in hard vacuum with only an emergency breather. The record was 4 minutes before permanent brain damage. He paused. She complained that the breather tasted stale. Krillnex had given up pretending to work. She was openly watching him spiral. "Perhaps you should take a break." "A break," he laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "A break from questioning everything I know about biology, physics, and the fundamental nature of survival itself." He pulled up another file. "Do you know what she did during the radiation exposure test? She got a sunburn, not radiation poisoning, not cellular degradation, not even mild nausea. Just a slightly pink complexion that she said reminded her of beach season. To be fair, you did only run that test at 5 rads per hour. 5 rads per hour would hospitalize most species. I had to stop at 20 total because she said she was getting bored and wanted to know if we had any actual challenges planned." The door to his office opened without warning. Administrator Krillnex's superior, Director Nallon. He was not alone. 2 other Academy board members flanked him. They did not look happy. "Instructor Vexthor, we need to discuss trainee Brennan's performance." Vexthor laughed again, still not pleasant. "Her performance? Right. Should we discuss how she has achieved perfect scores on every single test, or how she keeps asking if we have anything harder? Or perhaps how the Ravagers now follow her around the biodome like imprinted hatchlings?" Director Nallon's carapace plates shifted in discomfort. "We have reviewed the incident reports, all 73 of them, in 4 days. 74 now." Krillnex's voice was dry. "She went for a swim in the chemical decontamination pool this morning because she thought it was a regular pool, complained the chlorine levels were low." One of the board members, a crystalline shardling, chimed softly. "Director, perhaps we should have mentioned to the instructor that Earth has been reclassified." Vexthor's blood ran cold. "Reclassified as what?" Director Nallon sighed, a sound like grinding metal. "Class 12 Deathworld. The rating was updated 8 months ago after a full planetary survey." He pulled up a holographic display, A planet spun slowly in the air between them. Blue, green, white clouds. Earth has more active geological instability, atmospheric chaos, biological diversity, and environmental extremes than any world that has produced sapient life. The fact that humans evolved there at all violates several established models of evolutionary biology. Vexler stared at him. Class 12. The highest rating possible. You sent her to MY course. His voice was very quiet now. My course, which is designed for species from Class 3 to Class 7 worlds. We wanted to see what would happen. What would happen? Krillnex made a sound that her translator rendered as barely suppressed laughter. Vexler put his head down on his desk. He did not move for a full minute. The graduation ceremony was held in the Academy's main hall, a space designed to accommodate wildly different physiologies, floating platforms for gas-based species, heated floor sections for cold-blooded ones, reinforced seating for the heavy-gravity trainees. Vexler stood at the podium for the second time. His prepared speech was still abandoned. He had not written a new one. There were no words for what had happened. Kate stood in the front row, formal uniform, hair brushed, looking like she had just woken up from a nap. The Ravagers were not in the front row anymore. They were on the stage, curled around Kate's feet like oversized guard dogs. No one had stopped them. No one knew how. Kate Brennan, Vexler began, his voice was steady now, hollow but steady, has achieved a perfect score in every category. He looked at the data pad in his hands. She has set new records in temperature endurance, toxin resistance, high-gravity performance, predator handling, and he paused, culinary fortitude. Someone in the audience laughed, a nervous sound. The training committee has voted unanimously. Kate Brennan is hereby certified as the first human graduate of the Galactic Survival Academy's advanced course. He lowered the data pad. I will now be accepting transfer requests to any facility that does not involve humans. Kate stepped up to the microphone. Thanks, Instructor Vexler, she smiled. I really mean it. You pushed me harder than anyone has since basic training. That is not a compliment. It is from me. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a small container. Also, I saved you some of those blood fruits, the ones from the biodome. I thought you might want to try them. Vexler stared at the container. Inside, something red and viscous pulsed faintly. Classified as a chemical weapon. I will pass. Your loss, she popped one into her mouth, chewed, swallowed. They grow on you. Director Nallon handed Kate her certification pad. He held it like it might explode. She took it, shook his hand. He flinched. Congratulations, Trainee Brennan. Thanks, so, about those human instructor positions I heard about. Vexler's blood ran cold again. You heard about that. Krillnex mentioned it. Kate shrugged, said they're looking for volunteers to train humans on Earth. Class 12 Deathworld sounds fun. Fun? Yeah, I put in a good word for you. She walked away. The Ravagers followed. Later, after the ceremony, after the other trainees had scattered, Vexler stood alone in the observation room, the same room where he had watched Kate crack her neck on day one. The biodome was dark below. Most of the facility was dark now, night cycle. Something moved in the garden section. He zoomed in. Kate was sitting cross-legged on the ground, the same spot where she had eaten lunch surrounded by lethal neurotoxins. The three Ravagers were arranged around her in a loose circle. She had a stick in her hand. She threw it. The lead Ravager launched after it, snatched it out of the air, brought it back, dropped it at her feet. She threw it again. Vexler watched for a long time. Krillnex found him there an hour later. Everyone has filed their incident reports, she said. The committee wants to know if you will be accepting the transfer. Which transfer? The one you did not apply for. Her eye stalks curled. Earth. They requested you specifically. Something about the instructor who survived a human should be the one to train others. Vexler did not turn around. Survived. That is the word they used. I am not sure I did. Krillnex slithered closer, Her voice was quiet. 217 species over 30 years. You broke every single one of them. And then one human showed up, ate poison for lunch, and taught your bioengineered predators to play fetch. She paused. And you are still standing. That is surviving. Vexter looked down at Kate through the observation window. She had fallen asleep in the biodome. The Ravagers had arranged themselves around her, guarding. What is she doing now? Sleeping, Krillneck said. Apparently, Class 12 Deathworlders can fall asleep anywhere, including chemical hazard zones. She is going to tell her friends to apply. Probably. The Academy is going to be full of humans. Almost certainly. Vexter was quiet for a moment. Then he turned away from the window. Tell them I accept the transfer. I already did. She slithered out. Her eye stalks were curled in that way he had learned to recognize. Amusement, definitely amusement.